Hi, this is Dr. Scott Young, and today we're going to get into election and voting issues. We are going to talk about them in a lot of different ways. I will say this because I have to say this for the standards out there. This is for educational purposes only. Don't delete me. Please protect me in that way. But I'm just telling you, educational purposes only when we talk about this. Okay? Funny video that we'll do. We'll do some funny videos with a PowerPoint here. And but I'm going to show you this one. This was done in 2020. I'm like a big oops. Watch this one.
We immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come.
Okay, let's listen to that again.
I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come.
Surge to the border. Huh. Okay, so let's show you a little bit about, as we talk about this circumstance here. Okay, so we're going to talk about the voter and election issues that happen. We're going to do a little historical discussion in here. And I'm going to do, there's going to be some shorter level to the conversation. Many of you have heard this, but I want you to think next level because we are what? I don't know, 2 months away-ish from an election. Okay, let's talk about that. Now, you go, why is he talking about this? I thought he was the Nasara guy. But guess what Nasara actually talks all about? It talks about election integrity. And I show you this kind of thing because we have to deal with this. We have to have term limits that are corrected, okay? We have to have the effective nature of taking care of the right ways for the election issues, okay? And when we don't have that, we don't really have a country. Do you understand that? It's a selection instead of an election process with that too. Show you what I mean here. Let me pull this one up here. It's kind of a funny point.
What's your name?
Yeah, I'll take 57 mail-in ballots.
Okay.
Yes!
How many ballots? Oh, 57 ballots. Okay, gotcha. I'll do that. Okay. So, as we look at this, these are some stupid quotes by these morons with this too. We have a president who stole the election through family ties, arrogance, and intimidation, employing Republican operatives, that's actually, I should have said that, to exercise tactics of voter fraud by disenfranchising thousands of blacks, elderly Jews, and other minorities. Barbara Streisand, 2016. Wait, isn't that what we could say about today and 2020 and 2022? When you have a president arguing that there was mass voter fraud in the absence of any evidence whatsoever, I mean literally zero, what's to stop anyone from saying so-and-so and so-and-so? What? John Fetterman, 2022. Like, you want to say that? And you want him to say that kind of stuff? Come on. What is a fraud event when we come to this? Now, specifically, there's a lot of confusion when we talk about the election issues versus voter issues, okay? What voter issues happen is it means that one person votes more than once in that same election. Okay. So that they will show you cases of a guy who gets, I mean, there's I don't even want to show you this one because it doesn't really, it's a big deal. But they hammer this one attorney who actually was trying to do some voter fraud issues in his state. And I think it was in Michigan. And he's been hammered and he goes to jail because you corrupted the process. And the guy probably did 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 votes or whatever, right? So that's what they would try to tell you. Now, another point that people say, and that's why the people confuse these words, these phrases with that too, is cast of ballots in the name of an ineligible named voter. Did you know that Scott in the state of Colorado, New Mexico, is still on the voter rolls? But I live in Oklahoma. How come I'm still on the voter rolls? And I told Colorado, I said, if you don't get me off of the voter rolls, well, you have to fill out the form. You don't get me the voter rolls, you guys are going to be, I'm coming. I'm coming. That is fraud on a national basis. In Texas, they just deleted over 1 million on the rolls. That is fascinating. Every other state has way more. They register to vote in a fraudulent name or fraudulent address. Well, you're going to see that one. And it's bribery or interference. Oh my goodness, you guys should understand that one as well. Now, the proof and penalty of this is called strict liability offense. So they may be eligible. Now, we're talking about a person who does this. May be eligible to vote again in some states. Wait a second. If you did it in one state, shouldn't you should be ineligible to vote ever? I mean, seriously. I mean, do you know that if someone has an offense against a kid, that they've harmed a child, that kid or that person, it follows him or her around, and there have to have laws. He can't even be within certain number of feet of kids, or at least actually in a room with other kids, without them all knowing the circumstance and having liability claims against the stuff. And yet, when we talk about corrupting a whole country, state, city, what? One of the felonies are 52-20511. Okay, and so it's differentiated on each level. We see these fines and penalties 30 to 60 days, sometimes up to 5 to 8 years. Okay, and those are on more of the, I would call them on a minor claim. So some guy who votes 18 times in a particular place, right? And he's done that, so he might get up to 5-something years with that too. Well, guess what's coming down the pike for the ones who have done this for nearly generations? Every time a new vote comes up, they're driving a new truck. Okay, so some of that history, we have to go back in time. This has been an issue. Do you know in 1876 they called Rutherford B. Hayes his fraudulency? 50.1% of the vote went to Tilden, but Rutherford had more electoral votes. There was massive backroom bargaining in South Carolina, Louisiana, and Florida. They had to have the army show up, and this is post, Civil War. Now, this is also post the 1871 constitutional change that went away from for the United States to of the United States. This is when the elite idiots set up their corporation with that too. So this is the first major event in that particular time frame. Now, there were other events that sort of happened, but this major event where we see a tip of a massive part of an election. Now, JFK and Nixon, it's called the machines in Chicago. There were 9,000 votes that were happening that happened for JFK over Nixon. Now, here's what happens. What Joseph P. Kennedy is JFK's father, okay, and RFK's father, right? And Joseph P. Kennedy, what you don't know about Joseph P. Kennedy is that he was setting up this election. He actually hired Nixon, a World War II veteran, as well as JFK, a World War II veteran. Remember, this is, that's only 15 years after World War II. And he sets up Nixon as an actor, which you guys don't understand. Nixon was a very, very smart man, don't get me wrong. But he was an actor, and he was set in to play a role. Now, he was promised an election a little later on, which would be, he took the election in 72 because, you have LBJ, who gets the rest of the term from 60 to 64, and then he takes 64 and he wins in a landslide, and wins in a massive landslide. He wins it to 68 and beyond. Actually, 68 to 72, you got Nixon in. So you've got a different kind of situation that happens. Now, what Joseph P. Kennedy did is went to the mafia in Chicago and turned the votes so that he won. This was an incredibly close election. And that's why a lot of the Republicans of the time frame were very upset with Kennedy. He isn't as well thought if you went back in time and sat around the people in 61, 62. Now, he was beloved by some, but he was hated by others because he was going against a lot of the traditions, but also there was a fraudulent portion of that election as well. And it was done by his father, who was a massive elitism. And JFK and his brother RFK went against the traditions. And that is why they had to be killed with that. Now, Bush and Gore, the Hanging Chads event. I remember watching the Hanging Chads, and I'm sitting there listening to people talk about this. There's these little taggy things. I'm going to pull that off the screen for half a sec. There's these little flappy things that would come on the end of your ballot that it was like a punch card point, right? And so that would happen in 2000, and they were talking about that they were hanging off. You see, if you punched all the way through when they showed that vote, and this is in Florida, then you would say, oh, that was, you elected, that mayor, that whatever dude. But there were these hanging Chad issues, and specifically it was around Bush and Gore. And I mean, the exit polls were actually hysterical. The woman would say, the guy would say, it didn't matter who, right? And they would say, yeah, I don't even know who I voted for. I'm like, that was only like 20 minutes ago? You don't remember who you voted for? And we're not talking about, I mean, like, I couldn't remember which judge I might have voted for, or which mayor candidate, or maybe a city council or some other issue that you might come up with in my particular district. Trust me, I don't always remember those, just like you don't either, right? But these people were talking about Bush versus Gore. Like, what are you talking about? You don't remember which one that you chose. And that is part of the media's now playing a role in messing with that election kind of things. The reports were not known for quite a long time frame. And it actually had to go through to December, where SCOTUS finally ruled that Bush won the election. That's W, right? And he won the election. And Gore said he'd never get over it. And now they rewarded Gore in other ways with this too. But these are actual events that were contested left and right with that too. Now, the 2000 Mules, if you ever have a chance to watch, this is fascinating things. And if you listen to the media talk about it, they will tell you like stupid statements. I mean, that it made no sense, and it was silliness, and it was badly done. But what they found is that they took They found 5 stash houses. That was just what they found. They could have talked about many more of them. They had, with at least 10 drop boxes utilized. Now, what I want you to understand, a drop box is a whole area where they put them out because they were worried about, the C word, the C-19 word, right? And so they were worried about it. So the people would show up, and it was in the middle of the night, and that's the only one on camera. And they showed stuffing in more and more and more. Come on, right? And that happens in Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Most elections normally have maybe 75%, maybe, who would ever go forward and vote. That's the problem that happens with elections in the past. Now, if you watch an NBA game or NFL game, all you see is them pushing, you to vote, right? So they want you to do this so that you feel engaged, but they stuff the vote. This is what they do. This is how they do that stuff. There were 200 plus events, 100 plus events, 500 plus events, 1,000 plus events of these 5 stash houses with 10 drop boxes. The geo-tracking found the mules. Now people, well, I don't know what a mule is. Well, in drug running, they know exactly what a mule is. A mule is someone who brings over that particular stash of drugs, for instance. A voting mule is a pretty darn easy thing to figure out. And yet these reporters act like they're idiots. By the way, they are stupid or corrupt. And either way, they're all useless in this way. There's massive video surveillance if you watch the film and just let the video surveillance go and see what happens in there. There are as many as 400,000 bad ballots. Biden doesn't even win by even that number, even close with that. And see, the fact check team goes out, and if you just search that particular thing, use any search engine you want to, right? And you'll see it was horrible, it was badly done, it was bad set of studies, and it was, and I'm like going, can't you just tell me what it is without putting your spin upon it? Now, let me back up here for a second. Do we all have biases? Okay, this is my Colorado Buffs, okay? I'm a huge Buffs fan. Now, if you were, and I don't care about any other college team, but let's just talk about a pro team. For instance, I hate the Oakland Raiders. If you said to me, Scott, you need to love this, right? And I'm like, I hate it. That's why I could never play fantasy football, because I was never very good at it, because I couldn't stand anyone who's playing against my Denver team, right? And I just didn't like them. I am very, very biased against the Oakland Raiders. I still call them Oakland because I won't call them in Las Vegas, right? So am I biased upon that? Of course I am, right? But if I'm writing an article or if I'm presenting a paper in a professional way, people could actually beat me up if I started making articles about the Raiders and their history. They'd say, well, you hate the Raiders. Doesn't that make sense? Why would you listen to me upon that? Because I'm biased against it. But if I used pejorative language against it, that is actually interference in and of itself. Okay, and they pushed the agenda based upon the C-19 safety issues. This is how they do that. This is why it was a cover. It's a part of the Nassara peace. We have to have the integrity coming back into our ease. Do you know what I mean by that? Okay, and SCOTUS came and challenged. All the challenges were unsuccessful. And when you listen to what the courts are saying, like, wait a second, there's all these evidence. I got video evidence. It's like the guy runs into the grocery store, he steals a whole bunch of stuff, and he leaves, and I'm like, nope, that didn't happen. What? It did too. I saw it. I watched it. We can identify the people who did it. And they tell you it didn't happen. And then people tell you, oh, well, that's just made up evidence. The courts, the courts ruled against him. So you say the courts are always fair. No. Every person you talk to who has a different viewpoint upon the world, or they believe their media, they would actually, if you just said in a vacuum, are courts fair? They'd go, no, the courts are not fair. Give me examples of a court, being unfair, or just an idea. And they will give you many ideas and many examples with that too, if they're just a little bit informed. But when we come to Trump and all the things related to that, oh no, the courts were totally fair on that one. Okay, do you see the point that comes out here? Okay. So what is the opposite, or the other area of the election portion? The definition of that is very different, has some similarities, but it is actually different in a couple of ways. So it means receiving ineligible votes. This is a systemic issue that you have to see. Rejecting qualified voters. Wait, there are people who've walked into states and they said, no, you can't vote because someone already voted. You already voted. No, I didn't. Bet. Happening all the time. Where they alter or tamper the ballots. Most ballots, even a mail-in ballot, has to have an envelope inside of the envelope that has to be notarized. In many states this happens, but you can't just shove in on ballot into a basic envelope and then ship it over, right? That's called, that is a ballot problem with that. It's a tampering of a ballot. And yet they took them in 2020 and 2022. When they falsify the election returns or falsely report upon the voting, when you see that, and let me give you an example. Every single time, if you don't live in California or in the Pacific, area, Pacific time zone. So let's say you live in the mountain or the central time zone, right? So in central time zone, for instance, just give you an example, let's say it's 10 p.m. on a voting night. It's only 8 p.m. on the coasts. Or if it's 8 p.m. in Central, it's 6 p.m. on the coast. Now, most people haven't even had a chance to get to the voting booths at 6 p.m. because they're just coming off of work. And if I challenge you to go back and look at video evidence of this, they will say with 1% of the votes in, Joe or whoever that candidate is, and Hillary, won the state of California. If 1% of the vote is in, and you have all the media saying, well, we project a win for this. And I'm like, have you really projected that win? Who has election-based F with it? You know who I'm talking about. It's all the mainstream media. And when they tamper with ballots, what I just told you about, when they tamper with the boxes and they mess with that. See, we're not talking about the voter F issues. We're talking about election F issues, okay? So when you have the voter stuff, that's by a person doing something. This is a systemic level issues. Now, the proof comes in the proof and the penalty. Again, strict liability offense. They may be eligible to vote again. It's really fascinating. I mean, and now you're talking about a whole group, a person doing it to a whole area. They can do this to a county, right? And the conviction code is different on every level, but it's basically the same basic code. They're using the same one. And so we don't differentiate in most states and most federal levels in the same code. We're using the exact same code we use with the voter issues. Now, they might be in danger of federal laws because they've have they're on their status on their oath. What you don't understand, what most people don't realize, let me pull this off the screen for a second, is that if you become a polling person and you're working for them, you actually have to sign an oath of office. Just like you sign an oath of office to be a state senator or whatever that is. It is, and they will talk to you about federal penalties, blah, 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 blah. And yet, when you watch, there is a man, I can't say who he is, I know him pretty well. He and I've talked about this. This is a lawyer, and this lawyer in one of those battleground states, I'm trying to protect him, okay? The battleground states was at the big city meeting, okay, the biggest city in that particular state. And the Dominion idiots showed up, the CEO, and said, "Oh, by the way, if you have a problem with the voting, you just turn off the machines, fix it up." And he talks about fixing it up, but he talked about hooking it into the internet. He goes, "I wish I had it on camera because I'm sitting there listening to it. I think I had a recording, but I didn't get it. Somehow it was gone." Okay. Well, Mike Lindell does some of the most gorgeous stuff, just like the 2000 Mules. He shows that Dominion machines were manipulated by internet stuff. The truther community knows this very clearly. Now, I'm going to give you an example. Tory says, it's Tores, and says, S-A-Y-S, okay? And Tory says is got some really cool information when you listen to her, but there are other people doing the same thing. In 2016, they believe that they had cut the internet connective ability on that particular election. But the internet capability for those machines were allowed in 2020 and 2022. The foreign interference that occurred comes from China. It also comes from Spain and Italy. And we know that because there are some real interesting backroom deals that were cut, that the CIA director at the time was questioned upon this exact thing, and then suddenly she's gone. Interesting. In each one of those battleground states, he shows multiple videos, and you can see the stuff of the officials stacking the votes over and over again. Again, we've talked about the 70% in voting in most states. Do you know that some of the states had 130% voting? Like when do you kind of say that doesn't make sense? That's like a quarterback dropping back to pass 20 times and he completes 25 balls. Like, okay, normally, if you do well, you drop back to pass 20 times and you complete 15 passes, correct? So 15 out of 20. That's how you would say that. And he completed it for 230 yards or whatever, right? But they're saying 25 completions to 20 passes attempted. Like, the math doesn't add up. And you have to understand the math isn't supposed to add up with that stuff too. The math isn't supposed to. All right. In the states, there was, in Georgia specifically, there was massive switching in the cameras. The state Senate went from 34 to 22 Republican. House seats went from 103 to 77. And yet, Biden wins 13K of the vote. And it was so close, 49.47 to 49.24. That should have called a recount in Georgia instantaneously. Oh, but it was just fine. If you listen to Brad Raffensperger, that boy is going to prison. Promise you that. That boy states all the time, it's the most perfect election ever, and yet all of the evidence has actually come out, and it's coming out every single day. Wisconsin, Biden only had a 20K lead. All irregularities come from Milwaukee. You see, they take the big cities and do that stuff. Arizona, almost all counties went to Trump, but they delayed the voting in the Phoenix area. Huh? Oh, and it was hotly contested. I mean, people, internet was down. People couldn't get into the vote. They were shut it off. It happened actually in 2022 as well. In Pennsylvania, Trump actually said they would drop 100,000 ballots at 4 a.m. And yet, that's exactly when we see some of those post office trucks. Boys in the post office, you are in trouble. Everywhere they documented the fraud. And the Constitution of Pennsylvania was changed only days before November 4th. What? Come on, guys. So what are the conclusions we have? Biden wins, supposedly, 81 to 76 million. The media colluded along with the polls, as I've shared with you before. The court supported it. And then here's one of the more fascinating events. This is why January 6th is so powerful. The codes actually stipulate by when you listen to, let me pull this off screen for a second. I want you to hear me. The policies of the Senate or the House, when you talk about the House, and it says that means Congress, the congressional areas, so you have the House and the Senate, they meet together. If there is a contested election, you have to meet together if they haven't done this. And that's why the Gore and Bush one was done by SCOTUS. Now, and so that was done in December 12th of 2000. So it was already set in stone. Now, I remember when we were in that time frame, November and December, and it still wasn't done. And SCOTUS hadn't even possibly ruled on it. That's when the irregularities showed up. But in January 6th, all they had to do, and by the way, there is a senator in Oklahoma, is Langford, who was talking at the time when January 6th happened. You know, the Capitol was, you know, there was an insurrection event, right? And I'll show you the video, cute thing about that one. And then and you know, he's out there talking, and he had said beforehand he was going to go for Trump. And then as soon as the thing was over, he suddenly flipped over to Biden. Wait, what? How'd you do that? All they had to do is meet for that 10-day period of time, and they had to have it open so C-SPAN would be on, and they could have had sports going on or anything else. So people had to at least see them arguing, cussing, and discussing that particular thing. And yet, did it ever occur? No. That was the point of January 6th.
Work to incite an insurrection.
There is no comparison to inciting an insurrection.
Into inciting an insurrection.
They feel if a president has incited an insurrection.
For inciting the insurrection.
Incited the insurrection.
Someone who just incited an insurrection.
Did incite an insurrection on the Capitol.
For inciting that deadly insurrection.
Okay. Can I play that again? Because I think you guys might want to see this. This is really powerful. Listen to what they all say. These are media to congressional, and they can't even say it right. This is the White Hats telling you.
Former President Trump incited an insurrection.
He worked to incite an insurrection.
There is no comparison to inciting an insurrection.
Into inciting an insurrection.
They feel if a president has incited an insurrection.
For inciting the insurrection.
Incited the insurrection.
Someone who just incited an insurrection.
Did incite an insurrection on the Capitol.
For inciting that deadly insurrection.
Like it should make you go, can we please stop saying that? Could one person stop saying that? And yet they can't stop saying the stupid word. And again, I'm telling you, this is for educational purposes only, but they said it. I didn't say it. I didn't make up that word. They said that word. It's in their own voices. Do you see how nutty it really was? And this is how the media is a part of this thing. And so because they didn't do it, here's what the Brunson case is all about. The Brunson case is just directly about that. Because you didn't follow your procedures, you're fired. By the way, as a business owner, I have a policy procedure manual. If you stop following my policy procedures, which are, and especially it depends on if it's just some little dumb thing, like she wears her badge and it's always like sideways on her, oh, like whatever, it's on your shoulder blade sideways. I'm not going to worry about that, right? But if you're actively going against, the traditions of the company. I mean, the things that we need to do. And I've had people that I've had to fire over the years because they were like, no, I'm not going to do it that way. Like, and they just wanted to, take it. And it wasn't even a moral stand. We're talking about, I'm just not going to do it. Or I had people that lie to me, and they would lie. And when I catch them in the lie, and I'm like, you want to come clean? If you want to come clean, I'll forgive you. And so when they had to do that, you have the only recourse is to fire them. This is what that day was about, is that firing event. In 2022, we had the Senate seats of Warnock versus Herschel Walker. Herschel Walker won heartily, but the special election comes up with 100,000 extra votes when it was a close one. They spent an extra $79 million for Warnock. In Hobbs versus Lake, Hobbs is the election officer. I mean, we're talking about, the fox guarding the chicken coop. How many, do you have control of who wins that election, and yet the election's about you winning the election? And no one in any place would say, you don't have any control over this. You are removed. You want to remove yourself from office, that's fine. But she was in charge of that kind of stuff. She never debated Lake. Did the exact same thing as Hyde Biden. Okay? The ballots were printed on 14 by 19 inch ballots for a 20-inch piece of paper. When you put those things into the scanner, what would happen is they would come out and they would get messed up. They would either get ripped up, or they would be shown as invalid. So if you had a little Republican thing on your thing, they would give you a wrong kind of ballot. More than 20 to 40,000 votes were not allowed, and this is only a 17,000 difference. So in Maricopa County, which is Phoenix area or the greater Phoenix area, and you have 17,000 votes in the state, and yet 20 to 40 in the Phoenix and Phoenix basic area, and you have 20 to 40,000 that are in contention. Of course, she didn't win. I mean, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure this out, right? And then I know a lot of people that came out of the 2020 and they said, well, Trump didn't win, so we just got to focus on 2024. And I'm like, and I've been using this one with people quite a bit. So let me just put it to you this way. Let's say you have to go down and get your license for your work, and it's downtown, and it's 2020, and you go down and suddenly you get mugged. So you report it to the police, and they go, well, we don't see any video evidence of that. Well, we see something, but we don't have enough video evidence. We can't really identify the person on the camera. But I mean, there's other evidences around it. I mean, you should be able to identify who that might be. Yeah, but we don't see enough. I mean, you're okay. Okay, so you go, well, I don't know what else I can do, right? So the first time you're disillusioned, but what can you do? So then you have to go down, like I said, every 2 years. In 2022, you go down and you go to the same place and you get mugged again. There's more evidence. Now you're prepared, and you even have your cell phone out and you're watching, but you get mugged again. Let me ask you a question. When 2024 comes around, you got to go get that dumb license thing. Are you going to walk into the same place? Are you going to do the same thing? Insanity is repeating the same thing and expecting a different result. Do you hear me? If you do the same thing and expect a different result, what does that mean for you? Why does Trump, and here's the things that you need to ask yourself, just sit back, and even if you don't believe me, why does Trump keep talking about 2020? Why? Why would he keep talking about it? Trump has been sued for election cases. Fani Willis, Jack Smith, the Bragg case, all about election issues. Now they'll conflagrate the issues, but Willis gets direct statements from Biden. They have evidence. I mean, she got inside evidence points from a DA in Georgia, from the FBI, through her contacts through the Biden administration. Jack Smith got overruled in his case and then comes back with a weaker case back here only less than 60 days away, around 60 days away from the election time frame, which is outside of, I mean, it's inside of a time frame. You cannot bring a case against someone. Like, and SCOTUS already ruled against this issue. Bragg actually pulled back. He's like, well, we shouldn't sentence, Trump in September. Why? Because the evidence is so flimsy against all of them. And when you even go and look at this, there is not one person who showed up. I mean, Trump didn't show up for the inauguration. What? This never happened. Your old president comes to your inauguration. Even if they don't like each other, they still stand there because it's a PowerPoint from one administration to another, from Bush to Obama, from Bush to Clinton, whatever that might be, right? Even from Carter to Reagan, and go back in time, and you see this over and over again, right? And yet, the oath of office happens 11 minutes early from noon, which is out of order. 3 guns were shooting off in Arlington and should have had 4 guns. You always have an extra gun if you have 3 of them. But one of those guns don't even shoot off. You only had 2 guns going, right? So there's 3 guns, and that doesn't do it. So you have the 2 guns going off. Okay, so how many, and I haven't counted the number. I probably could go back and do that, but it wasn't a 21 gun salute. But when Trump flies to Mar-a-Lago, there's a 21 gun salute for an ex-president. When you look at the Biden issue, there is an improper dress. This is from Derek Johnson. He does the gorgeous kind of thing. And the officer that is between Pence, the VP, the fake VP issue, the guy that turned on everyone, versus Biden, there's a guy with supposed military officer, but he's got nothing on his uniform. And when truthers like us have called them out, now they put something on their uniform, but it's so improper. They faked it, which is illegal to do, by the way. There's so many illegal things that happen. And they're preparing. Here's the funniest thing. Nancy Pelosi actually says we're like a reptilian. We're waiting because, and she basically says, all we care about is the House and the Senate. And she talks about this. Brad Raffensperger actually has stated, oh yeah, Trump's going to win the election, and we're going to win the Senate by just a little bit, and we're going to lose the House. You what? You guys, if you're a congressman, congresswoman, right, and you're a potential one, and you have to go under, like, you normally align yourself to to Biden, but you have to align yourself with Kamala? Here's the thing. She is one of the most disliked people in all of Washington, D.C. All they want to do is lock up all of the legal issues. And you guys want to repeat that? You want to repeat, even if Trump gets in and you think we won, yay, we won, and yet we have a whole bunch of idiots still there? That's a good thing to you? Now, I'm going to turn off the sound because it doesn't really matter on this one here, because it's funny. But look here. Look closer. And pull me off the screen. Look right underneath here. Sorry, I'm pulling it get it going here. But underneath his chin, this is a real video. This is underneath his chin. Who is that? Come on. And in Pennsylvania, let me pull this off, pull me back on here. In Pennsylvania, there's only 1.8 million mail-in ballots. They got back 2.5 million. This is blatant. This is craziness. Okay, so let me pull this off the screen here. And I want to show you a couple other kind of cute videos I think you'll like with that too. So this is actually from a series called The Veep.
Like Kamala Harris. Forget the Simpsons predictions and check this out.
I'm not leaving. POTUS is leaving. He's not going to run for a second term. I'm going to run.
My fellow Americans, words have many meanings, and sometimes instead of conveying our meaning, they can suggest other meanings.
When we talk about the children of the community, they are children of the community.
Well, we are the United States of America because we are united. And we are states.
Talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time.
Whatever we have in store cannot be known. The past was once the future. The future is, I should say, unknown.
We gotta take this stuff seriously as you are, because you have been forced to have to take it seriously.
Obesity is a serious disease, and it needs to be taken seriously.
You need to get to go, and need to be able to get where you need to go to do the work and get home.
I hope that clarifies the issue, and this can be the last word on those words.
I don't even know what the heck is going on there. I mean, it's like they're copying a movie. Here's an even more interesting one. This just came out today, and listen to this one.
Is that she has not said it herself. She's a ghost. She's running, Sean, as a ghost. Just like Joe Biden hasn't been running the country and some anonymous gang has been making decisions that face no accountability, it's the same situation. If you've noticed, every flip-flop has been delivered by an anonymous staffer. We have no idea, once again, we have no idea who these people are, but this is happening. And this is a confession that she knows and they know. That
they're a ghost? Who's the ghost? And guys, when you catch how crazy, how nutty these circumstances here are, they just don't fit. Now, if some of you believe that these are actors that have been playing a role, who are we actually voting in legally? Or can you vote in a legal actor that's playing someone else? Is that not treason? You answer it for me. Is it treason? I think so. I don't make up the rules. But here's the point. If we don't say, wait a second, am I really going to participate in that? Am I going to be really a part of that? Here's my point. If Joe Biden won 81 million votes, and yet absolute proof shows us that he might have only won 20 million votes. Okay. Now, Trump gets 76 million. Obama has a massive win with 71 million. Do you think that in 2020 we had an overwhelming number? Absolutely. We had way more number. If you want to talk about a red wave that was coming on, that was 2020. And so let me ask you a question. How many votes does it take for him to win? If you said to me, Joe got 81 million, Kamala might get that many number, so we need to get 90 million. Great. So if Kamala we need to get 90 million for Trump. Wonderful. It's just a math problem. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's a math problem. All you have to do is go to 91 million and you use the mechanisms that are already out there, including there's actually a series called House of Cards where they actually created all kinds of chaos to stop the voting. How do they do that? I'm just asking you to think this thing through. You need to be saying what is happening. Now, the military is watching. For sure they are watching. And I'm calling on the military to just finish this thing. Let's finish this thing before we have to get to the silly, crazy things of this. Let's stop the stupid. But listen, I know this thing is going to happen in the right way. I know it in the heart of me. I get up every morning at 4 in the morning and I'm in prayer a lot. We have to let the military finish this thing. But does it make any sense to you that you can have enough of a red wave without a math problem on the other side of this thing? That they can just manufacture the number of votes? Of course they can. Of course they can, guys. So that's just a thought to consider. And so I hope you like what we're talking about here. If you want to go on drscottyoung.com, and you'll see a lot of books that have more information on the NESARA piece. But this is a part of this. This is super a part of NESARA because we have to have the right people. Because if you put in the idiots and you let a fake election go on again, what will occur is that they will turn NESARA, they'll turn off a gold back standard. It won't happen. You think it gets in and then they'll just push it under the rug. It has to be done correctly, and it starts with that election. Thanks so much.